We're driving a Mazda CX-9. Coming up, we're going to tell you the hilarious way that Mazda wants you to know that this is a premium product. And yes, I will also explain the cast. But first, information explosion! I can't tell you how glad I am that in my cast I still can do the aggressive pointing that you guys have come to associate with any of our videos. I'll also mention that we're driving the Mazda CX-9, which has been on the market for quite a few years now, but importantly, a Mazda CX-90 is going to be coming, I believe, for the 2024 model year, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, let's dig into the Mazda CX-9 with interior. How do you find the interior of the Mazda CX-9?
I find it very appealing. It feels fancy to me for some reason. It might be these little bits of knurled looking plastic, and this trim is very attractive, as well as the wood trim.
Put up the graphic. Mazda refers to that as Santos rosewood, so yes, I believe that is real wood. And by the way, the fancy trim that we have in this vehicle is because this is the signature version of the CX-9, which is the fanciest rendition. They also refer to this as like a textured aluminum trim, and when I tap it, it doesn't necessarily feel like real aluminum.
Is aluminum spelled slightly differently, like fruit?
Aluminum with two O's. We should also mention that there is the shiny black plastic in this area, which isn't so concerning for me. Over here, where I'm going to be touching a lot by the window switches, that's going to get real smudgy. You know, left hand is doing all the work these days, and so she's covered in random goo, and that's going to collect there. Even though I have limited touching capacity because of the one hand barely functional, I do like as you touch around here, less so as you get to the second and third row, but material quality feels nice. One thing I've noted in other Mazdas is that the seats are comfortable, but they tend to be a little bit tighter for me in the shoulder region. That's still the case here, but less so than, let's say, the Mazda 3 hatchback that we drove not too long ago.
I like how supportive the seats are, especially when you drive.
In terms of seating capacity, the CX-9 tops out at 7, only on the Touring Plus and Grand Touring trims. Also, with either of those trims, you can opt for a pass-through so that you've got captain's chairs in the second row, and then you can climb into the third row. On higher trims, there's a console back there in the second row that is basically a duplicate of the console we have here. All of that talk does lead to space. Second row, you got sliding and reclining seats, and that recline is a generous recline. Plenty of head and knee clearance. Now, when you get to the third row, things get a little cozier. Access to the third row isn't so bad. It's a little bit low, but as long as you're willing to crouch, it's a fairly wide opening. No problem for children climbing in there. Once back there, my head jams immediately into the headliner. The foot to butt ratio is also a little unfavorable, so kind of a knees high seating position. And unless the person sitting in front of you in the second row is willing to scooch forward a little bit, your knees are going to be jammed into the back of that second row seat back if you're an adult. All of that is leading us to the conclusion, put the kids back there.
And once you put someone in that third row, the second row has to come up, and then even the first row had to come up to accommodate the passenger in the second row.
Yeah, so there's only so much forward to back length, and you're gonna have to figure out how you want to apportion it based on who you like the most. Kiddo, how is it getting in and out of this car?
It's a little bit high, but it's still pretty easy.
You can do it, but it's not as low as some of the cars we've driven. Any issues with the car seat installation? And really, yeah, it's a booster. If you're typing, oh, it's a booster, you're right.
The latch points are covered by bits of plastic that are simple to remove.
And easy to lose.
Easy to lose. Simple install, easy to do.
One consideration is if you have a rear-facing child seat. If you have the second row back, I think there'll be plenty of room for a rear-facing seat. But if you also want to have people in the third row, then you might have to think about that. And you might also want to consider which trim to get, because having access between the second row seats rather than a console there could be really helpful. Behind the third row, there's 14.3 cubic feet of space, which is enough for a couple of bags, but not necessarily a car filled with 7 people worth of luggage.
My girl and I took it on a road trip though, and since it was only the 2 of us, it worked great. 3 bags in the back once you put down that third row.
Yeah, I think that's how most people are going to wind up using their CX-9, is mostly with the third row flattened. And I really like how easy it is to lower and raise that third row. You've got a little hook that pops down on either side, underfloor storage area there. I think it's a very functional space. I will note though that even with the third row down, aft of the second row seats, cargo space is still less than you get in, let's say, the new Honda CR-V. This is a little bit like driving a compact with a bonus third row, more so than a proper mid-size three-row SUV. As for safety, the Mazda CX-9 is rated 5 stars overall by the NHTSA. It is a top safety pick plus by the IIHS. There's also a full suite of active driver assist, lane keeping assist, automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, full speed adaptive cruise control. One thing I found interesting is that in the CX-9, there are 6 airbags, but many of the other smaller, less expensive Mazdas we've driven recently have 8 airbags. What do we think, family? Is the Mazda CX-9 family friendly?
Absolutely family friendly.
It is, but not mid-size 3-row SUV family friendly. Sort of a tweener family friendly. Rear window test. Almost all the way down. Boop. Armrest test. Okay, here I am driving in sort of a modified 8 and 4 because my hand is weird. Inboard, that's a fairly squishy perch. It's nicely positioned. Outboard perch, oh, that's even squishier. A very comfortable place to rest an elbow. I'm gonna go 85% inboard and 90% outboard. Hey, would you like to see more videos like this where we review cars as a family, plus the occasional helicopter adventure when I get my hand back into a normal operation? If so, feel free to subscribe. Style!
Most of the style to me comes from that front end that kind of protrudes out. The front grille is very in your face. The chrome trim, I feel like it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting from a style perspective, both on the front and the rear, and the sides too, I guess.
By the way, the grille that we've got on this one is specific to the Signature. There's a couple of different flavors depending on which trim you go with. Mazda has sort of a clean aesthetic to it, and when you have a larger form factor like this, the lack of adornment becomes a little bit more obvious. Nonetheless, I think this still has some of that shapely, sleek essence that we've come to expect from Mazda. I find the CX-9 to be an attractive SUV, which is especially impressive considering how long it's been on the market. But what do you think? Do you like the look of the Mazda CX-9? If so, if no, tell us in the comment section. In motion! It is no surprise that the Mazda CX-9 drives similar to other Mazdas, with taut suspension, not uncomfortable, very controlled body movements. Another trait we've noticed in Mazdas of late is that the steering ratio is comparatively slow. I actually haven't been able to find those specific numbers for some of the other vehicles we've driven, but I have for the CX-9. It's 17.6 to 1. That is a notably slower steering ratio than, let's say, a Toyota Highlander. In the context of a Mazda 3, when you turn in and it's kind of slow, I found that it allows you to make some precise steering adjustments. In the context of a 3-row SUV, what I experienced, let's say on a winding mountain road, was that I didn't get the response I wanted, and it made me think, oh, is this thing not gonna turn? In this context, the slow steering ratio sapped a little bit of confidence. Okay, I will now stop talking about steering ratios and I'll quickly mention the powertrain, 2.5 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine and a 6-speed automatic transmission. As I start to accelerate here, there's immediate torque. It doesn't even need to go for a downshift. If I floor it, that was a very, very prompt reaction, and it doesn't feel like there's big gaps in the ratios. Even though it's fewer ratios versus other mid-sized 3-row SUVs, it still feels plenty competitive from the driver's seat. All right, that's what I think. What does Sweetie think? You know, this is one implication of the cast, is I can't clap worth a but we did get here. Sweetie's driving.
I like driving something this small that has 3 rows. It gives me more confidence.
If you're the kind of person who fears mass, this is a really nice alternative. So do you feel like you can maneuver around things as they pop up?
I feel confident maneuvering around the massive amounts of debris on the roads where we live.
What about visibility? Any issues?
There's a little bit of a high belt line, but the windows are large enough that I can see out appropriately. And this B-pillar isn't in my way, which is cool because it often is.
And since we have a corner coming up here, tell me, are you experiencing any level of fun?
Is confidence fun?
Yeah, I think confidence can be fun for people who oftentimes don't feel confident. So I'm assuming you're feeling fun?
Whee!
Okay, so this is a very common scenario where you've got a turn.
It feels speedy. Often at a blind intersection, I feel intimidated pulling out, but I felt like there was plenty of power to get up to speed quickly.
All right, I think we've gotten to the bottom of it. With Evie feeling confident, let me weakly clap myself back into the driver's seat. Thanks for the clap, little kiddo. Overall, I think there's a lot to like about driving the Mazda CX-9. I just wish it was a little bit more sprightly where steering is concerned. Moving onward to emotion factor. I think there's some potential emotion here, tell me if I'm wrong, because it is an individualistic choice. By style, they don't sell as many CX-9s as they do, let's say, Honda Pilots.
That appeals to me because I like not seeing my exact vehicle everywhere I go. I also really like the interior style and functionality.
If you're feeling emotionally drawn to buy a Mazda CX-9 of your very own, you might need to sell your current car first. If you're curious what your current car is worth or what you should pay for your Mazda CX-9, click the Kelley Blue Book pricing link in the description below. Remarks! Remark number 1. Hey Micah, how did you get your cast? Simple story, I was riding my mountain bike with some friends. I went off a 3-foot drop, did not nail it. And I went over the front bars and landed on my hand and broke a bone right up in here. And so I'll be in a cast for 3 more weeks, 4 weeks total from injury. Really not that bad, although I absolutely hate having a cast on here. Some people ask, oh, can we sign your cast? And there's a digital divide here. So instead I have added this sense either censorship bird.
Are you giving the bird to your cast?
Yes, I will mention though that when I was riding, I was wearing these exact flying eyes sunglasses, and it was really funny because they flew off my head when I crashed. And we always talk about the Resilimide construction being so darn robust you can bend them and do that kind of stuff. I looked over and they were sitting perfectly like this in a bush. I was like, that is good branding. I'm so dismayed I didn't get video of it.
Me too.
They do hold up to damage if you were so inclined and you want a very robust aviation grade bit of eyewear. I can attest to the fact that these things are built solidly. If you'd like some aviation grade eyewear of your very own, click the link in the description below. Use the promo code Micah to save 10% on flying eyes. You can crash in them if you want to. Moving on to remark number 2, infotainment.
When I'm using the native interface, it looks clean.
And it works really well with this knob.
Yeah.
Like, it's so simple that you can just rotate and get to all the things. Mazda's done such a good job with that interface.
However, when I was on my road trip and I was attempting to use Apple CarPlay for navigation and music, it was so much scrolling. If this had a touch screen, I'd be a lot happier with it.
Which is a real problem with the inherently touchable interfaces for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which both come standard. By the way, that is a standard 10.25-inch screen. Another element I do like about that screen, though, is the incorporation of a 360-degree camera system. However, that's only included on the top 2 trims, which means if you want a 360 cam so you don't run over your child's bike when you're departing your house, that'll be at least 46 grand. Also, it is interesting that the button to activate it is over here on the left side, which is about as far away from that screen as you can get. Oh, and that's kind of fun. I'm doing 30 miles an hour and it'll show me the screen. Oftentimes they lock that out. That's interesting. Wow, it looks so fast and cool.
It really does.
Let's just record that for our driving footage.
I really enjoyed the 360 cam when I was navigating through parking lots. However, I really wanted it to shut off by the time I got to the road because I need navigation and I didn't know where I was going and the screen was all 360 cam.
I don't know if I'm going left or right, but that's what's beneath the driver's side door. You can exit out of that, but you have to tap. It'll go through all the different views. So you have to make 3 taps on this button here to get out of that 360 cam screen.
Good to know.
In the beginning of the video, I teased I was going to tell you how Mazda hilariously is working to convince you that it is a premium manufacturer. And here's how. If you want, you can spend $125 to get a cargo mat for the rear. And if you're on the configurator on Mazda's website, they show that option with a chandelier sitting on it, which I don't know why, I just find it hilarious. To me, it just seems like, what do rich people like? No bad ideas here. No bad ideas in the room. What do you got? Chandeliers? Go with it.
I also like how it's not constrained in any way and that seat is lowered. So, I mean, if you did go driving with that chandelier, it's gonna be a disaster.
You gotta get the optional chandelier bungee. I'm sure that's another great option. Now, if this was my car, we would obviously get that because not a week goes by that we don't have 3, 4 chandeliers to deliver. I just wish there was a mat that could accommodate us in our chandelier delivering lifestyle. This is the most I've ever said chandelier in a video.
In your life.
Chandelier. All right, let's talk about engine choices. For engine choices, there's one engine. It's a 2.5 liter turbocharged engine, but I will mention that it runs just fine on 87 octane. However, if you spring for 93 octane, you get a nice little bump in horsepower and torque. All-wheel drive is standard. If you want to tow, it's 3,500 pounds max. Sweetie.
Yes.
Can I give you a trim recommendation?
Sure.
For 2023, Mazda's killed off the Sport trim, which is the previous base trim. So now the new base trim is the Touring trim, $38,750. It comes with leather in the first and second rows, heated front seats, 3-zone climate control, wireless phone charging, a power liftgate, and smart key access, though it's the push button kind rather than the one where you just grab the door handle and it automatically unlocks. Nonetheless, that is plenty of car, though I might suggest spending another $125 for the carpeted cargo mat to transport all of your chandeliers. As for the competition, the Honda Pilot, Toyota Highlander, Kia Telluride, which has been updated for 2023, or the Subaru Ascent, though maybe a better competitor would be something like the Kia Sorento, which is kind of a smaller midsize offering. I'll also add that the CX-9 is slightly higher priced than the Telluride, but is lower than the new 2023 all-wheel drive Pilot Sports trim, which is their base trim. Lastly, at the beginning of the video, we mentioned that a new CX-90 3-row SUV is coming from Mazda, probably for the 2024 model year. I really like the CX-9, but that CX-90 might be worth waiting for. It's gonna have an inline 6-cylinder engine with a 48-volt hybrid system, which sounds really compelling to me. And then they're also gonna offer a plug-in version with a turbocharged 4-cylinder. I don't know anything other than that, but I think the CX-90 could be very compelling. All right, let's wrap things up with Synopsis. In thinking about the essence of the Mazda CX-9, it's an indulgence that's perfect for people who want a slightly smaller option. To me, it is the petit four or petite four if you're an American, which I am, so I should probably say it that way. No, I'll say it the French way, petit four, of 3-row SUVs. Family, I think we've done a good job reviewing the CX-9. May I have a 5?
Oh no.
And a 5, just hit the cast.
Ding.
And you, come get your high five. Ugh.